Hello everyone and welcome to NoMoreZeroes, the show where we talk about video games and why video games matter. This is episode 2 of NoMoreZeroes, and today we're talking about Nier Automata. Okay, welcome to the podcast today, and today we have 2 guest speakers. Yeah, we've got Lost Link back again, and we've also got Juno.
Hello.
Yeah, happy to be back. Yeah, I've been waiting for this podcast for over a year now, because it was like my game of the year last year, and like when I was playing it, I think no one else I knew at the time was playing it. So after I beat it, I was just like, I have no one to talk to. So just trying to get my friends to play it so then we could discuss it.
And it's funny you say that because this game was my game of the year as well. I think it might be the game of the decade for me. It's been quite a while since I've played a game that was actually very intriguing in terms of story, but it had very much like a lot of depth. There's a lot of fan theories, a lot of just fan discussions about it. I'd have to say the closest thing to this kind of game was Undertale for me, where fans from just all over the world had so many theories, and just they had their favorite character, but it was so varied. There were just so many rich characters that everybody could kind of like associate with. It's been a while, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Cool. Yeah, I think like last week I was a little bit struggling to compare God of War and Nier Automata, only because God of War was executed so well in every area, and I hadn't played Nier Automata for a while. But having played it yesterday just to get some video footage for this podcast, I was reminded of just how deep and amazing Nier Automata is. And I guess it's just difficult to compare the two because they're both excellent in their own different ways. But in the end, overall, I do think that Nier Automata is still going to be the game that stays with me decades later when I've forgotten about the other excellent games like God of War. I think that the game itself was, again, like really deep, and that's what I like about it. But not only just within the game itself, like the game itself just on its own is already really deep with so many like philosophical characters and so many themes that other games don't really touch on, and they use the game mechanics to convey these different ideas and themes that other mediums would struggle to do. But not only that, but the lore itself, connecting it to Nier, or before that the Drakengard series, and the fact that the grimoire Nier has so much lore in it. If you take everything into account, it's something that we're gonna have this podcast for like 1 hour maybe, but I think that if all 3 of us were to have just played it and finished it, and if we were to make a podcast in that context, we would probably be able to make a whole series of like 10 episodes of this, 10 hours of this. It's that much content. Yeah. And so I guess today we'll just be talking, but taking into account the fact that we haven't played it in a long time, but I guess this is probably one of the best games that all 3 of us, one of the games that have stayed with us and that will probably stay with us. But I guess let's talk about the specifics, like why we love Nier Automata. Like what of the game do you guys like?
When you're saying like, oh, this is like one of the most impactful games I played in like such a long time, like I feel like that's I have like the same feeling, except when I was thinking like what kind of games are kind of like using like or interacting like with the player and in the game at the same time. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I haven't experienced that since I was listening to Brian talk about Undertale. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess besides Undertale there hasn't been a game like this in a while. But I feel like there's so much that I liked about the game, but I kind of just thought, okay, I'll just like focus on like maybe 3 different topics. So I don't know, I'll just add to whatever else you guys want to talk about.
I mean, granted, I have a feeling that we'll be focused like a lot on the lore, and the actual philosophy of the game. So I guess besides that, I've got some things. First off, I'd have to say the gameplay was a lot better than the first Nier. So to be honest, the first Nier was an excellent game. It was very story driven. It was very philosophical as well, but it had more of an emotional impact than an actual. It didn't feel as much of a sci-fi philosophy kind of game. But to be honest, the gameplay was excellent. I'm really glad that there was a better developer this time around.
Okay.
Which really made the game even better for me than the first one. The music was excellent for both games.
Of course. Yeah.
So just besides the lore, I'd have to say even the gameplay and the music just really helped.
Oh, yeah, side note, you guys have played the first one where I have not.
Oh.
So there's that perspective too. So yeah, I have not played the first one. But I remember when I was in high school, I found the soundtrack for the first Nier, and I listened to it like all through high school, but having not played the game, like this music is really great. So yeah.
Right, and the music played a really big role for me. It had this very all of the songs had a melancholic kind of sound to it, which I guess I'm guessing it's the same music director as the first one.
I think it is. Yeah, Keiichi Okabe.
Right, and I think he just does a great job of the scenes, like the music selected for each scene was done really well.
Definitely.
Even the world theme where you're just traveling.
Yeah, I know. It's so memorable, right?
It had a peaceful feeling, but also it was very sad. It definitely gave it more of the post-apocalyptic. This Earth is in this state.
And I love when after something will happen in a city, like when the theme park is destroyed or something, then the same theme only be like a more destructive or quieter tone.
Right.
And just like I love the Pascal's Village. Those would change. So good.
It was nice. Like I think even the lack of music in certain parts really did.
Of course,
affect.
That's right.
There were some scenes where it was complete silence, and it was just you just read the dialogue, and it just made it so much more. I think a lot of the time, games just try to make this grandeur kind of sound when something epic is happening. When in reality, sometimes minimalist approach is the best.
I feel like that part of it's very anime. Like sometimes in anime, I think that.
Oh, did they do that?
Like when people get killed, it's kind of like music stops sometimes. Not all the time, but it just reminded me of that, I guess. Maybe from that influence, maybe. Yeah.
So yeah, there were scenes where you're just walking in, just very ambient sound or just barely anything. And that created the mood too. So I just thought the music direction for this game was just excellent. Before we get into the lore, I just needed to.
I know. But not only just the music and how it's used, but for me, I myself am a composer, and I buy a lot of video game music just to listen to it and get influenced. And most of the time, there are 1 to about 5 tracks in the soundtrack of each game that I really like, and everything else is kind of just it's there, but and I appreciate it in the game, but I don't listen to it on its own. But Nier and Nier Automata, I find that every single track is equally memorable to me. So I think that even in the case of having substantial tracks in its own right, I think Nier does it really well.
I think I like Nier, after listening to the entire soundtrack so many times from the first one, I'm there's no way the new game could beat this. But I think I like Automata better, actually.
It grows on you. I still think the first one, it might just be the impact of playing the first Nier.
Because it's similar, and because the made up language that Emmy Evans uses, it kind of links the two together. Because those of us who have already played it, it reminds us of that feeling as well. So.
And I also thought the first Nier felt, like I said before, it was less of a sci-fi, despite it being a sci-fi. It had very fantasy elements to it, and I think even the music had more of a RPG-ish fantasy element, as opposed to this one where it was very sci-fi. It felt very Blade Runner at times, and certain parts where it was very electronica, as opposed to an orchestrated kind of piece. So I thought they were both great. They were both appropriate. So I totally agree.
So do you want to get into the lore first or the gameplay first? Because the lore is going to take a long time, I guess. Depending on how much we remember of it. But
I guess we can talk about the gameplay a little bit. I would say it was definitely better than a typical hack and slash, which the first Nier was. It was really lame. The one bad thing I can say about the first game, even though it was an amazing game, was just it was the gameplay really bogging it down. I meant in terms of combat. Of course, there was a lot of dialogue-based gameplay. There was a lot of it was very bullet hell.
That's right.
Kind of gameplay. So I guess there is still a lot to talk about there.
Well, for me, I'm not interested in the gameplay of games in general myself, but I'm interested in how they use the gameplay to tell the story. That's like, that's like my main thing for games. And like, I guess there were some things I liked that Nier did, like just like every game you have to collect weapons, you have to upgrade and stuff, and etc. And I just like how they try to kind of integrate that into the fact that you're an android with like the chips, and you're kind of, it's like you're in your own mind kind of upgrading yourself and stuff. And 9S is your kind of he's looking after 2B kind of guy, and like the game starts with picking the the lightness of the screen and stuff, and he's like messing with her vision and stuff.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I don't know, I like those little things where they try to make it like, oh, you are an android. Even with like saving your game, you're saving your memory of the androids and stuff. And when you die, you're just uploading your memory to a new body. Like, I like those kind of gameplay things, but are part to do with the story.
That's true. They did that really well. Even like the inventory screen just felt like you were kind of like digging into yourself as an android, and as opposed to just some random third party, just kind of fourth wall inventory screen for your party for like an RPG game.
Yeah. And the joke ending of taking away the operating system chip in the start menu as well, that leading to a game over, I think that's trying to enforce that idea. Yeah. But also just the fact that they use the gaminess in that as a gamer we're kind of expected to start a game, attack the enemies we're told to attack, and finish a game, and the vast majority of games would just have that and then end at the credits, whereas this one, same as the original Nier, which is why I love the original Nier so much, is you play it through once, and then from what you've learned in the first playthrough really embellishes your understanding of everything that happens in your second playthrough, even though it's the same events. In Automata, it's playing as 9S instead, so you see his perspective. But the fact that in the first playthrough we're given an insight on the machines and the fact that they have emotions and they're trying to fight for their families, and they're being killed senselessly by the androids. And in the first playthrough, you don't know that. And so you keep fighting because the game makes you feel like, that's just the thing to do. You finish the first playthrough, you go back to the second playthrough knowing that they have emotions, knowing that they're trying to just protect their friends, but you're like made to just do the same actions again, just trying to kill the machines again. And 9S doesn't know that. And you need to kill them to progress the game, but you as the player have this awareness now, and the game kind of makes you feel bad for that. And I somehow I just really love that idea of kind of stabbing you in the heart for that. And then after the second playthrough is the third playthrough, which is basically the continuation of the scenario from the first and second playthrough. And then that ends, and then you got all these endings. So I think that use of gameness, not just the gameplay, but the fact that it's a game that has this progression, that was also implemented well.
Yes, actually, I have to bring that up. The hacking really added to the story. It was excellent. I thought the first game did the same approach, but it didn't have that hacking gameplay. It tried to make up for it through additional cutscenes.
Yeah.
So the first Nier, what it did was you fight these bosses, not knowing that these bosses that you were slaying had their own backstory, and that they were fighting for a specific reason, protecting their loved ones and things like that. But you only see that the second playthrough in the first one through additional cutscenes you never saw in the first one. This one, though, what made it so good was it was a hacking system, so it felt more than just watching a cutscene. You were kind of like, you were thrown into the experience by seeing, like probing into the minds of these machines.
Yeah. So. Although in the first one, I think when you play as Akane, I think that the arm, which is a shade, I think that gives you insight on the thoughts and the language of the shades, and as
you're
a result,
right. You do listen. You do hear the. Yeah. That's right.
And that's why I love the original Nier, because it was like this one. Yes, it gives you the same sort of thing, but that one, while you're killing them, you can hear them like say like, "Why are you killing?"
It's
that
gibberish.
Kind of,
the first playthrough,
Yeah.
and then it's actually like a
And it's kind of like you are continually trying to kill them while you can hear them telling you about their suffering and like asking you just why you're killing them, and that kind of stabbing you in the heart and twisting it, that kind of feeling is really, unique, I think, to this, at least so far. So.
Right. So yeah, in terms of gameplay, this hacking mechanism was excellent. Incorporating the inventory, just even the tutorial, like as part of the story. The weapons, the descriptions, they each of the weapons have stories. Like I thought that was excellent.
I think the most memorable, at least for me, the most memorable hacking thing was when you hack the opera singer boss. And you see into her head,
yes.
And it's like you've already fought her, but now you fought her again, and now you know what she's thinking and stuff, and why she's gone crazy and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is genius! Like, yes, I'm 9S, I'm the hacker. I can learn so much more about what's going on.
And once you are able to hack into it, like you want to hack everything, and then like the body count, the second playthrough just drops, just knowing like, at least for me, like I was hacking away at a lot of machines. I mean, I knew it was gonna do this to me, like just because I played the first one. But still, like I wanted to get experience. I wanted to get loot.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I don't know. As to be honest, like I have to say, like for me, I don't play games for story just because books have been a better medium for me for storytelling. So I just don't expect much out of even like games that do like reviewers say it has excellent storytelling. Like I always think that books just do it better.
I think what makes Nier special is that I think that the story of Nier Automata only works as a game, which makes it unique.
Yes, exactly. Like the hacking thing, even being able to play it a second through, like you can read a book all the way through, and at the end there'll be the twist where you realize that you are the villain, or the things that you've been doing were actually detrimental towards the world, but then you don't get to like play through it. I guess you can read through it again, the book again,
but not with new characters and new locations.
Right, exactly. So this was something that I'm guessing the gaming medium probably was the only means to do it, maybe.
Well, that we know of, I guess.
I mean, it's interactive, and I think that's what separates books from games.
Yeah.
So
and I think this is the pinnacle example of like a story that's deep and sophisticated and can only be told by games, and that it just adds to my belief that games should be taken seriously as mediums of storytelling. But even the DLC, like other games, DLC can add to the story as an explicit kind of like here's another chapter, or it could be completely irrelevant, like giving you like battle modes. And so Nier, in making the footage for the podcast yesterday, I realized that the only thing I completed all the side quests 100%, and then I realized I didn't finish the DLC, and then so I set out to do the DLC. And even in doing the DLC, which is all just battle, like arena kind of things, I was not expecting more story. But the battle arena, like you complete every level of the battle arena, and then within the space between each battle, they add a bit more of trying to explore the discrimination that the androids have against the machines. And I mean, that's one of the arenas. And the other ones had lore that connected to the original Nier and the desert masked tribe and things like that. So it feels like even in the battle arena kind of DLC, they still try to add more to the story and try to keep up that feeling of exploring these philosophical themes. I thought that was really interesting.
And fighting the CEOs.
Oh yes, fighting the CEOs. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. You just gotta throw that in there, right?
That's right.
Well, I like what you guys are saying about the first Nier has the thing where you're fighting the enemies, and the second time you play you get to hear what they're saying.
Yes.
Like I noticed that in this game too, like the robots, sometimes they'll just be like, oh hello, how are you today, and like I think I was watching someone else play. Like I already assumed that the robots weren't that bad.
No, yeah, that's a given.
Yeah.
That's a given. I mean, the moment Pascal shows up, like even before then, I mean, like I think like even the developers they like the creator made sure that the machines looked
Cute.
amiable
right.
to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you just assume like it's a game. This is the enemy. You want to just fight everything, kind of. Like
That's how it
you
takes
walk into a
advantage of
new
you.
area and you'll just start fighting the robots, and they're like, "Oh, how are you? How's the weather?" And like, I remember watching some. I forget who it was, but they're like, "Oh, they're not attacking me," but they had already like killed 3 of them, and it's kind of like says
Right.
something about violence in games.
And it's also, I think, deliberate on their part to make you realize that later as well. So I think that's genius.
Right. In fact, it's funny. There were so many actual like Pascal and philosophical references.
Yeah, not
Like-
only Pascal, there are so many. It's both Western and Chinese philosophers. It's just like so many of them, like are their names and their ideas are personified in the characters. So.
Like I forgot what it was a very famous literature. It talks about how it compares humans to actual bipeds, and like it was really ironic how like even the enemies were called like bipeds, or they had these references to like old school philosophy on like how like people have defined what humans are, and like they're actually that's what they are
Right.
as machines.
Yeah.
It was I think the creators, I guess he must have done a lot of research.
I don't know. Yoko Taro and his like whoever wrote the story, like co-wrote it. I don't know. I feel like they have read so much, and then they put like all the depth in the game, not trying to hold people's hands in terms of themes and stories. And I think that part of what makes it so sophisticated is because it's not afraid to be too hard to understand for like their players. Like there are other games that make it really deep, but then they explicitly try to explain it to you as if you wouldn't know. But the fact that it kind of just lays it out there, and then it's up to you whether you look into it deeper or not, and the themes just work. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think you can kind of see or assume that there's so many similarities between the robots and like humans, like us ourselves, kind of thing. Like obviously it seems like they're imitating humanity and they're doing all these things that humans would do, but then you could also think like this is kind of like how they're just they're just programmed to just fight and kill each other originally, right? Before they're kind of changed or somehow evolved into whatever. But but it's interesting because you read about the robots, and when 9S kind of near the end of the game, he finds the research logs that kind of describes what happened to them and what they're programmed to do and stuff. And like it says that they'll like find something to do that humans did, and when they fail, they'll just try it again, and they'll do it again and again without learning from their mistakes. Even though it'll end in their death or something, they'll just do it again and again and again. And that could say something about us as humans,
which I mean it is the human condition, both the android side and the machine side. And I think the creator definitely makes that clear once I think it's at the very end of the game, where 9S finds out that the machines and the androids have the exact same chip. They're using the exact same CPU. That their foundation is the same. It's just the approach to how they live, how they choose to find purpose in life is very different.
There's also the parallel between the androids trying to utilize like the propaganda of protecting the humans, which is kind of essentially their religion, like the humans on the moon are their god, whereas it's kind of parallel to humans and religions. It kind of drives how the androids treat the machines or treats the mission, and gives them purpose, like the existentialist.
Which I think I don't know if it's Matt's one of the 3 categories, but the existentialism and the every group trying to find meaning and purpose in life. I think the android on its own, yes, it was a religion. It was this. You never really. I mean, I guess the humans are gone in this world.
Yeah.
We don't know if they've left to another universe, but they're gone. They're not on Earth, and they're not in their universe at this point. So they've pretty much forced themselves with this made-up human beings in order to continue fighting.
Yeah.
And some of them choose to, like the commander, she actually knows, but she chooses to continue to pursue and just keep fighting for the sake of finding purpose in life. Like that's their goal. They're excellent at warfare. So if there's no war, keep creating it, because that's the only reason why they exist.
What was really interesting is that when I was first encountering the machines, I thought, like, oh, it's kind of interesting that they're acting like humans and stuff. I wonder if they somehow got a hold of information when humanity was on the Earth and they're trying to imitate it or whatever, and they're just like messed up and stuff. But really, they've been programmed to kill. And if they were to like defeat the enemy, they would have no purpose anymore because there's nothing to fight anymore. So there's like one information log when that 9S finds that's like, oh, they realized that if there was nothing to fight, then they would have no purpose and they wouldn't know what to do. So they deliberately messed with their network so that they would be less good at fighting, so that less people would die, or they would constantly have something to fight. And that's what caused the kind of malfunction to act like all these different things in humanity.
Right. And I also think it's interesting how once you have that mindset, like for example, I guess for the androids it is warfare. Like that is their well-being. Like without it, they have no purpose. So when you find androids, they're considered, I forgot what the term was. I think they were rebels, or they were androids that decided not to fight anymore. And you go through these little side quests where before you kill them, you talk to them and you realize like that they had killed like a fellow android, and like they were sick of it. So they completely branched off, and your resistance leader is trying to find these androids, and you're trying to kill them. So in a way, it just shows how ignorance can really, it's not even ignorance, it's stubbornness. It's just, if anybody is completely thinking outside of that box, they are to be eliminated. I think there was just one specific side quest that I really remember is she really wants to know who killed her friend, and it turns out that it was actually the character. I think you find like screenshots or something, and at the end you realize that it was her, and then at that point that android kind of loses meaning. But just knowing that a lot of these androids are questioning what they're doing, and I think half of them know what they're doing, they just don't have any other way of living life. I thought the machines were more, I would say, not to be extremely biased towards the world now, but I would say like the androids represent more of the militarism of like America, Russia, China, where, to be honest, don't want to offend too many people, but America is functioning on warfare. A lot of finance goes to it. Most of the government funds are to it. So the country exists on the basis that there is some sort of war, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of how the androids were. And I see the machines more of a long-term country where they've experienced war, they've had their share of fighting. I mean, and I'm not saying like America's completely militarism, but I mean, there's many communities even within any country where it's like that. And I think machines, there were different groups, right? There were there was the machines that represented kingdom and family.
In the forest.
Right. The forest was excellent just because they still wanted a leader. But they didn't want that leader to continue. It was funny, the loyalty. The moment like the leader was threatened, all of these guards were willing to sacrifice their lives for him, and that was one way to live, is to find a good leader to respect.
In the desert, I guess the mass people would be from like the original Nier, where it's all about the laws and the rules.
Rules. Right, like you abide by the rules. And then there was even simple things like very personal, like love and romance, which was what...
In the abandoned apartment place?
Yes.
The babies and stuff.
Actually, I was more thinking even the boss, like the Simone boss.
Simone and
okay.
her interaction with Satra.
Right, like she found her purpose in beauty and just making sure that she stayed beautiful and that she stayed attractive, that people would love her, and that the one that she loves most would love her back. And that was her purpose. So like there was just a whole bunch of dead androids all around her when you fight her, but like she was just doing anything she can to stay beautiful. So I just thought the machines was the perfect example, like the perfect human condition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm missing a few other groups though.
Well, there's the forest people, like the Pascal's forest people, who are like just like wanting peace, so the pacifist type of group.
Right.
Then there's the carnival kind of people who just want to have fun and enjoy life. And
It was like more of a pleasure.
Well,
Right.
I don't know about pleasure, but kind of just like let's be happy, kind of.
Millions.
Yeah.
Like there was like fireworks going off like every 2 seconds.
That's right. It's too much stimulation, but yeah.
And then I think there was the cult too, which I guess we missed.
Yes,
the
the cult,
religious cult.
with Kierkegaard.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was just it
Oh,
was
yeah.
a different form of leadership, right?
Yeah.
They wanted a leader that was more religious and more like just that emotional high.
Yeah. That ends up having everyone commit mass suicide. Yeah.
Right. And it was so ingrained into their minds that they would be willing to just throw themselves into the lava for this religion, which also happens.
Yeah, I guess like the machines are trying to like emulate every part of, because like it's the faults and the bad things that humans do is passed on to the creation, which is like the androids are obviously exemplifying that in how they discriminate and treat the machines. And even though the machines are by the lore created by the aliens, they too are inhabiting, like adopting the kind of human attributes, which includes a lot of the good and a lot of the bad. So like the machines, I think, are like more, you can empathize with them more, because it feels like they, like, I mean, at least the perspective we're given, the androids are kind of just sent out to kill the machines, whereas the machines are kind of just trying to defend themselves and try to work out how to live and create a civilization and imitate the humans. So
Right, and many of them they give up too, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a few androids that I encountered where you probe into their minds and it's empty.
oh, the androids.
I'm sorry, the
machines, yeah, okay.
And they're empty. And right before they fall off the cliff,
Oh, yeah, the suicidal
you
one.
probe into their mind, and it's just this ball that's just kind of moving around.
Okay.
It was really interesting how it was, because I think the aggressive machines, they had a lot more stuff when you hacked them.
Oh, yeah,
there was
yeah.
a lot of like little things that you had to like weave through. But the ones that have lost purpose and meaning, it was just this little ball that was just kind of wandering around, and you can choose to shoot it, but you feel so guilty as the hacker.
Yeah.
That's
like-
another good gameplay kind of example.
Yeah.
Was that the guy on the building like committing
Yeah,
suicide?
it was
'Cause, like,
I probed him right before he falls off.
yeah. And like if you shoot, then he jumps anyway. If you don't shoot, he still jumps, right? It was
Right,
like,
he does jump. Like
Yeah.
I chose to probe him, but then like I think I like timed out because I didn't want to like
Yeah.
But then he still jumps off. So like it shows how human beings, like, they try to find their group and their purpose, but then some individuals just can't do that.
Well, I'd like to talk about one certain robot who I empathize with the most, Mr. Pascal. What did you guys do? What was your decision at the end of Pascal?
There were several decisions throughout the
No.
journey.
For
I'm
Pascal,
talking about the
when
main
the children.
big decision at
Yeah.
the end. What did you do with Pascal?
I don't remember what I did originally.
What?
But I mean, yesterday I played it again, and
I decided to shut him down.
yeah, I shut him down too. But yeah, I don't remember my original decision. That's all.
Okay, because that was like the biggest
It was
decision for me in
shocking.
the
It
entire
was
game.
shocking. Yeah.
And like I think Pascal is such an interesting character because, you know, even if he's just like the other machines where he's, you know, found is just kind of stuck on one certain way of thinking in humanity, like he's reading like the philosophy of that, and he's trying to raise his village and kind of in peace and stuff.
Right.
And even if it's just kind of a robot program thing, like, oh, humanity also tries to live in peace, I'm going to try that thing. Even though maybe he's not actually thinking like a human or evolved or anything, it's just kind of one robot mentality to do that.
Right.
But, you know, he's still one of the only robots I felt that was almost like had like human emotions and like
Because
after like, you know, all the robots kill themselves, he's like, I can't handle this, I don't know what to do, like you should just kill me, whatever. And I feel like it is in that moment where he has the possibility of gaining like actual human experience. And that's why like when I'm like, there's no way, I don't want to shut him down, even though that would be kind of considerate to him, and I don't want to kill him. So I just left. You know that's an option too. And I felt like in having that option to leave him in his suffering, there's a hope that he will not kill himself and kind of use that experience to become the first maybe evolved robot.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird you say that though. I actually always thought that every machine was human. So in a way, like Pascal went through what he went through, but every machine had. It's just like I think every machine actually had emotions. Like the fact that you can commit suicide means that you went through sadness and depression. The fact that you want to latch on to want to be loved.
Yeah.
That means you're a human. Pascal was just another type of human that focused more on sympathy and just general love towards others. It was like a selfless human side. So I guess when you say humanity, if you're saying like the selfless side of humans, yes, Pascal was the one that represented that.
Yeah.
But I would say every machine had human traits.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, like some weren't as good as others.
Yeah.
And usually Pascal is the one that separates us from the animals, you know, kind of thing, where we're supposed to be. I mean, we're able to experience sympathy, apathy, where we cry for others, not just ourselves.
Yeah.
Where we are happy for others, not just ourselves. So
I'm not sure though. I'm not sure like maybe that is the case, but even with a robot like the dancer, the opera singer, where she's thinking, oh, I want to be seen, I feel like that's a human's trait, yes, but aren't the robots filled with the data of humanity and that they're acting like?
To be honest, I actually thought they were originally programmed simply to counter the androids, and that was their existence. It was for the aliens, because the aliens were their humans. What the androids were, right? Yeah. What the humans were to the androids, the aliens were to the. So in a way, they had their purpose in life to fight for the aliens. But I don't know how many years had passed since then.
Yeah, and also like the idea of losing meaning when the aliens or the creators are dead, whether it be the androids or the machines, whereas the machines have accepted that and are trying to create meaning, whereas the androids are lied to and told that the creators are still alive.
I would think the machines were already more human than the androids from the get-go. They had, most of the machines weren't fighting for the aliens. They were trying to find purpose in life on Earth. So, in general, like I guess I'm not like completely disagreeing with you, Matt, but I would say like just the machines were human.
Okay.
I
can see it.
It's just Pascal was the human that most people would want to be, I think.
Even Pascal, though, I know I was saying Pascal because he's a good example of like a decent kind of robot.
Right, he's a decent human.
Even I throw Pascal even with all the rest in thinking that they might still just be robots acting like humanity instead of actually feeling real emotions. But I'm not sure.
Right, that's one way to think about it. Yeah, I just for some reason, maybe it was just the hacking scenes, I just instantly assumed they were just human at that point. Just the fact that, they were doing all these human things.
I think the extent to which they appear human or exhibit human traits, I think that's kind of relative to the capacity for each of the machines to be able to comprehend the world, like the capacity for them to think for themselves. Because Pascal read a lot of philosophy, and through that I think he came to the conclusion of wanting to create meaning, and that meaning is to find peace and to have his village live peacefully. Whereas a lot of like the cult members or like the rules tribe, I think for them it's a little more difficult for those specific machines to be able to I mean, I don't know if they have the capacity maybe in their microchips or whatever to create meaning for themselves, so they were drawn to following the meaning that is provided by someone else. That in and of itself is kind of a parallel to the humanness.
So I think when you really root for Pascal and when you really feel for Pascal, it just shows that like you want humanity to be more selfless, and you want it to be more of a community where people can really try to understand each other and understand other cultures. I thought Pascal was an excellent example of a human being that can like try to create peace in like a very chaotic world. It's just really unfortunate what had happened to Pascal, and that's what's happened to many people in history.
It just feels like with Pascal being woke, I don't know, like he's very learned and is aware of all these different ideas, and through that he's got this intelligence. But that also, the extent to which you are aware of the suffering around you and aware of the amount of knowledge that exists in the world, and have, the more you know, it's kind of like the more you kind of suffer for it. I don't know how to explain. It's kind of like if you live in ignorance. Actually, this is not really relevant, but I was watching like Childish Gambino's "This Is America," the music video. I think that's really really well done, and there are many things being said by the video. But one of the things that is pretty easy to get is that in the background there's this violence, and in the foreground it's the dancing. So it's kind of like you can choose to ignore what's happening, and in this way, and in I guess a lot of life, if you choose to ignore the things that are happening, like in the background that other people are suffering, then you're gonna have a more kind of easy life. And if you choose to get yourself like more informed about the reality of society or the world, you tend to suffer more for it. And I feel like Pascal is kind of an example of that, because I think that's like we as the players are made to empathize with Pascal because of how like human he seems, and at the same time he is the character that is the most focused on in terms of how tragic his kind of sub-story is.
And Matt, I remembered why I actually shut down Pascal. It was a specific line he said. He said, I had taught these children fear, and that's the reason why they did this. So he was pretty much blaming human thought and human reasoning and the human condition for this to happen. So I was actually worried that Pascal would give up being human. That he would actually become more of a machine, knowing that the human condition is terminal. That because the moment you learn fear, you actually have this possibility of killing yourself or to do terrible things to yourself. So actually, I think Pascal saw the worst in humanity to the point where he didn't want to be human, and that's why I think I chose to shut him down.
But I feel like that's kind of his instant reaction in that moment, and I understand
that could be it too.
But I was like hoping, okay, as long as he doesn't kill himself, I feel like Pascal is kind of wise enough to use that experience in a positive way.
I see.
But at the same time, that's like, we speculate that that's the case. We hope that that's the case.
Yeah, we don't know, of course.
But there is also like a possibility that if you leave him, like if he was like a real life machine that you befriend and that happens to him, there is a possibility he's gonna kill himself because of what happened. Yeah, and I think that's
But yeah, I'm you're probably more positive person than I am. I mean, to be honest, it was a video game still, and I mean, if I were put in that situation, you know, that would be a whole. I think like this. I think the fact that it still was a video game, as interactive as it was, I think I was still a little loose on my decision.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do wish that they would give the option to like comfort him and to tell him you can be human.
A2, man, A2.
Right.
Yeah.
There's got to be a little more.
But I think
options than just shutting him down or killing him or running away.
Yeah, but the nature of the game is kind of like somehow there is beauty in that brokenness of not giving you the option to do like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I still think the creator probably is more of a nihilist than an actual like
He
optimist.
definitely is.
He was asked, I think, like in an interview, like, what do you think about humanity? Like, and then he's like, oh, with the amount of wars of humanity, like in the past 2,000 years, I don't think that it's gonna. I don't think humanity has a good end.
Yeah, there's no possibility.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. I don't know.
Because for some reason, like, I don't know if he tacked it on then, if that's the case, with like, you know, at the end with the bots trying to, you know, reinvent humanity. Like, it ends up, like, it felt very optimistic at the end,
Yes.
but, like, I don't know if the creator just, like, was like, it's not gonna sell well, let's just tack this on.
I don't know
and
if
just
it's-
consider it one of the endings.
I have a theory about that.
I don't know if he's trying to do it just for the sale. I think that that's actually connecting to that whole idea of making meaning, like as in. Okay, so it's like they make it a kind of an optimistic ending because it's kind of like what we know is this ending is bad, but we're gonna try and portray it as a good ending, an optimistic ending, because this is how we make meaning, by making it as if we've got more to do from here on. Let's try hard. Like, I think
Yeah,
that's what,
I saw that in the ending.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if the creator was just like, you know what, this isn't gonna sell. I gotta throw in something positive. At
I don't
the
know,
end.
with
And
someone-
I'll call it ending D. And if you want to watch this one, and if you want to take it, take it.
I
If
think
you
with
don't wanna take it,
someone
don't
with
take
that depth of mind, I think that his primary intention, I think, is to make that game great instead of focusing, at least as a priority, the money. I think because like Nier, the original, it didn't really sell. It was a cult following. It wasn't selling that well, but it was amazing. And I think that I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, I really don't think Yoko Taro cares at all, like what he does in the game.
Okay, so
like,
by
this is
making
all-
it very positive, it kind of shows maybe just the creator wanting humanity to be a fine.
I
another-
disagree with that because I think Yoko Taro he wants that nihilistic ending. And in, you know, shooting all the staff, we're saying like, screw that. Like I want these characters to live. You know, like right before the credits happen at the end of the ending E or D or E, whatever. You know, they still die. It's still kind of that like ending, whatever. But then the pods start talking, like they stop the credits, and then they're like, hey, like I have an idea, I've been thinking about this, whatever. And then they ask the player, and they're like, do you want these characters to live? And yes or no.
Right.
And like I think in that is like such, it seems like just like, oh, of course I want them to live, but I think that is a really important just moment there where if you choose yes, you're saying that you care enough about these characters and you're invested enough in the game that if you want these characters to live, then you are saying that you've gotten something from playing the game. In playing the game, their whole story is not just for nothing.
Right.
Because to me, like the main theme is like existential horror and like stuff in this game, and all the characters have like, you know, they, especially 9S feels like he has no reason to live and all this stuff. It's pointless. There's no reason for doing anything. Except now, if you include the player in that and you say, yes, I want you guys to live, I feel like you are giving them meaning by choosing that.
Yeah.
And then you destroy all the people, the
That have
credit that
created
made the game,
the
like,
game.
no, screw that. And then you get to see that ending.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never actually thought of the concept of shooting the staff names in that aspect. Like that puts even more depth to that scene. I thought that ending was genius even without that. But yeah.
Yeah, that was like even though that's kind of like that's something that they've done in the first game, I've heard, with the saves and stuff. Like, that moment there was the strongest thing for me in that game, because
It was same.
it's, you know, it's making the player prove that it's not all pointless, almost, by, you know, offering to help someone else. I feel like,
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it is the humanitarian approach of like how we're willing to sacrifice our lives for the next generation, for like the fact that you're sacrificing people are sacrificing your lives to continue the existence of the characters you love.
yeah,
And like they've sacrificed their lives for you to try to get there. So you should do the same. And I did delete my game after that. I don't know. I think it was really smart on trying to. And is that why you're saying it was a very positive game as a whole?
oh no, I thought the game was very depressing. I was very depressed after I played the game,
Okay.
but I was still glad that they had that one possibility of something in the future with that ending.
I think so. Yeah, like that was definitely the most positive. It was like just act of selflessness, you know, to have other people enjoy this,
Yeah,
and to have knowing that like your files, all of your files will be deleted.
yeah,
Yeah, it's smart. Nier, the first one did it. It was a different approach though. It was deleting your file for the sake of one character in the story.
right.
So if you didn't really care too much about that one character, it didn't probably, you know, it wasn't as impactful.
Right,
But
yeah.
in this one, it was the overall game and story and world and universe.
Yeah.
It's almost like Yokotaro went up a notch. He just had to like kind of one up himself.
Yeah.
And like, you guys have played the first game, so you know you have that kind of history, and you know maybe something similar themes are going to be in this game too. But I just kind of I don't know, I'm just going to try this game. I just played it, and like, I don't know, usually I feel like, I don't know, I'm a pretty positive person, I think, and I don't usually let myself get affected by depressing stories or anything, but like by like I guess the third playthrough with the 9S, I was just really empathizing with that kind of like, what is the point of anything? There's no meaning in anything. It's just like I don't feel like that in my own life at all. But if I would imagine being this android in this actual situation, that would be crazy. Like, I would probably go insane just like him. And like, that kind of existential horror was really strong for me, and I could really feel that. So that kind of option to do that at the end was like, at least I can give these characters some meaning as the player,
Right.
even though they have felt nothing, maybe.
Which was probably the part that gaming medium helped with. Because I don't know, I love Russian literature, and it's questions human existence constantly. Just classic Russian literature is just known to do that. Like it just questions the human condition and why we're alive. And if it was just that, I think I would just read a book.
Right.
To be honest, like I know literature that's much better in terms of that than Nier.
Of course.
But it was, you're right, the choice as a player to be like, no, I still want hope, as opposed to the author just kind of, you know, defining like he just, this is the end of the book.
Right.
This is the last sentence I'm gonna put, and you have no say in this.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you as a person can do something about it reading this book.
Right.
But
you can't change anything that's happened. in
right,
that book. Yeah.
right. So
But also the fact that it's a game makes it accessible, and you know.
yeah, I mean, I'm glad that gamers who don't read actually get to experience this. You know what I mean? Like, there's not many games that get into this category.
That's why I was like, I really wish that there would be more games that would be this deep, but the fact of the matter is that it's not what sells. What sells is just the things that people can relax and just like, you know, the challenge or the gameplay. And I mean, that's good, but then it's like the AAA titles, the majority of them have an average kind of story, whereas I really wish that there would be more games that are at this depth, because to be exposed to that sort of depth of material, to that philosophy and that sort of thing, I think is very important for humanity to be able to think at that depth, and for a game to make that accessible is very important. A lot of other games, I think, have the potential of being deep, but that they're afraid because either the players aren't going to get it, or because of that, they might not sell that well. And so that constant struggle to make sure they have enough funds for the next game, I think takes away from being able to prioritize having a really deep and good story. So that struggle really, I just wish that wasn't the case, because I think that if games were to be made for the sake of the art, for the sake of the depth of story, like we could have a lot more games like this that are informative, that educate in terms of the themes, the philosophical themes, to be accessible enough for people that don't have the endurance to read difficult texts, to grasp these ideas that are important for humanity.
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate that the gaming community, there's certain expectations, and also, I mean, to be honest, even Nier Automata, the fact that they still had to have like a goth girl, like Lolita costume character, they had to have these super anime characters, it actually, to be honest, it had to do that to get more people to play the game. Yeah. To be honest, like, that's what turns me off from a lot of anime-oriented games, is it takes away the realism. To be honest, if I were to do a Persona podcast, to be honest, like, I just couldn't relate with the characters, because these high schoolers, as much as they were going through all this stuff, they look like fashion models. Yeah. They were pretty. Like the one that like, put herself in a room for years is like this pretty girl, and like like, to be honest, like in if we want realism, she'd probably be overweight. She'd probably be very malnourished, or just kind of like not taking good care of herself. I think a lot of these anime-ish games, they take away the realism. Thankfully, Nier, as much as anime as it was, it still did it for me. But I would have been perfectly fine without the Lolita goth costumes, and still have taken as much out of the game.
Yeah.
I can also think that humanity might make androids like that.
Yeah.
So it's not that
unrealistic. Yeah.
But yeah, it had to cater to a Japanese crowd. It had to cater to a very anime focused. So I see why they did it, but I also see a lot of good sci-fi movies and books that don't do that, and are just as good. And I also think it was funny. I giggled a few times with the amount of like actual famous philosophers that come up, and it's almost like the director's hinting at, like, read
these,
guys, like, stop playing this game and like actually read Socrates, read read Pascal.
But that's
like,
the thing, I think,
and I think it's almost like it was ironic, because this creator was just like, I'm making all these cool philosophy references, so you should read instead of just constantly playing these games and expecting, like. Because most of these aren't original ideas. These are like crafted from many different philosophers, and they were just done in a very sci-fi anime way that people liked.
Although I don't think the game is telling you don't play the game, just read it. I think it's more that Yoko Taro is saying these are important people to read. You're not going to read them unless you are connected to, a positive experience that are like, or exposed to these names. So I'm going to expose you to these names, expose you to these ideas, and if they're interesting to you, you're going to just naturally pick up one of the books and read them, because if you like the game, if you like these themes, then you're going to love these books. It's kind of, that's what I feel the game is trying to do.
Because I think there was like a few parts where it's like, Pascal, what are you reading, or something? And he's like, I'm reading Socrates, this, and then he even like quotes the title or something.
Product placement for the intellectual.
Yeah, like this guy really wants like people to really read up on philosophy.
Or he's just kind of being I'm smart, I know these guys, I'm going to throw in these references, they're going to try and research them.
I guess it could be a pretentious
I think it's a mix.
Although the characters do have themes of like the philosophers, so it's not just for show.
But to be honest, like I think it was awesome, because Pascal was the most educated of... Well, actually, I take that back. I mean, there were like a few machines that wanted to educate themselves. Adam and Eve,
Oh yeah,
were
that's right.
examples of people that were educated, but they were educated in a very different way. Pascal was focused more on philosophy and humanitarianism, while Adam and Eve were more focused on just ideas and what the human condition is. They were really fascinated at being human.
Like from experience, if I remember correctly, because they were just like questioning and asking all the time, and it's like, what is this feeling? What is this feeling?
There was a scene I really liked.
The
where they
dinner table.
Yeah, they were at the dinner table and they were both reading. and I thought it was interesting because the machines were so fascinated with human beings that they wanted to imitate them by reading books and trying to understand how they think. But Adam and Eve were very different from Pascal. It's almost like the way they educated themselves was just different, and they turned out to be very different people.
What do you make of the fact that all of the philosopher names were attributed to the machines, none of them to the androids? Is there any depth you can find from that tidbit of a fact? Because I just realized that.
Well, you were saying before that the androids are, less human than the machines.
I've always thought the androids were less human than the machines.
So I guess that's kind of like a hint of the machines being... Maybe it is explicitly affirming that...
it's almost like they have their ideals.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why they had philosopher names.
Yeah.
I don't know how long the machines have lived without aliens, though. You know what I mean? Because the aliens were dead when you have that fight. Are the androids attacking the machines knowing that the aliens are dead? I was a little confused there.
I think the aliens were dead before the humans created the androids, but I might be wrong. I gotta double check that. But I think that's the case.
Wait.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the timeline. Like, it was.
I forgot.
I was a little bit hazy on like when the aliens created the machines and when the humans created the androids, and depending on the timing, like maybe the humans just decided to create androids for the sake of getting rid of machines.
Because it seemed like the aliens may have been part of what killed humanity, and then they built the Wait.
Where does Emil fit in that as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, whatever. It happened.
Yeah, it happened. Either way, I think the philosopher names is more appropriate for the machines either way.
Yeah.
I remember seeing they're like, oh, the humans are on the moon, and every so often we send supplies to the moon, and you can see in the background the rockets going up to the moon.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, you know what I think's going on? This is just, I'm like theorizing before I know anything. I'm like, oh, I think that the androids or the humans are dead, and the androids are taking over or something, and the androids those are not supply things, those are like rockets like going to kill the moon or something, because you can see they look like missiles headed toward the moon. I'm like, oh, something's definitely going on. And then that wasn't the case, but so I have just like favorite moments now besides like deep themes and stuff. But
are you done with your deep themes though?
I mean, existential stuff is what I like the most, and I guess we didn't talk about this as much, but the senselessness of the violence, which is kind of part of the fighting these machines and stuff. And I think that is really one of Yoko Taro's big things, is that there's so much fighting in life and also in games, and it's just like pointless, and there's no meaning without conflict, I guess.
But he does make the senseless violence cool looking for some reason.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know. I really like that about the game, and then just with humanity and Nier as how it tells a story through being a game, which we already mentioned. So, Game of the Year last year.
Over Breath of the Wild.
Yes. But who knows? That may be our next thing. We've got some more games lined up.
You've been listening to NoMoreZeroes podcast. Before we go, I just want to plug my other channel, Zero to Hero, which is all about music. As I mentioned, I'm also a composer, and after doing this podcast on Nier Automata, I got inspired and made about 2 compositions inspired by the music of Nier. You can check it out in the links below. Thank you for listening to the NoMoreZeroes podcast. If you like video games that are deep and philosophical, If you would like to hear more analytical discussions about deep video games, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with your friends. Once again, this has been Hiro, Juno, and Lost Link from Rescue the Princess. I'll see you guys next time.